didn't believe my story when I came home late after a wild night out and decided to divorce me. Hello, Reddit guys. My name is Samantha, 32 years old. I was married to Mike, the biggest love of my life. I lost him, and I'm here to tell you the story of how I cheated on him, like an irresponsible wife. Never thought I'd see myself in a place like this. It was a night like any other, or so I believed. A night that would overturn everything. When I took a look around, the familiar took on a strangeness, every piece of furniture a witness to the mischief that had taken its course. I cheated. And all I could think on repeat were two damn words that would not leave my mind, and I could not shake the fact that I had betrayed my own promise to myself. The remorse engulfed me like a somber coat, choking but unavoidable. This was a decision that put me in a spiral of regret, and now I had to find my own way out. It was never my plan for it to go this far, but the excitement of an affair had clouded my judgment as to what life I was ruining. The affair felt like a thrill at first, an escape from the routine of my life, but it had done nothing but widen the gulf between my husband and me. I had violated his trust, and in that violation, I had violated myself. The enormity of my actions weighed heavily upon me like nothing I had ever expected it to be, and now it was too late to turn time back and undo the destruction I had caused. I destroyed our marriage, and he took revenge by destroying my life. As they say, every action has its own consequences. I am now suffering the consequences of my own decisions and actions. I had a wild night out. He didn't believe my story when I came home late after this wild night out and decided to divorce me. It all started innocently enough. After a long week, my girls had dragged me out for a girls' night on the town. When we finally met each other, you could feel the air was charged, full of energy, prepared for an evening of friendship and happiness. We remarked that, we laughed, we danced over the drinks. I lost track of even how many drinks I had. The atmosphere became charged with that kind of electricity wrought only between friends on the dance floor. The music thumped in my chest, and for a few short moments, I was feeling alive, and detached from the sameness of my life, unburdened from the responsibilities that anchored me. But let me enter deep into the details, guys. Mike and I were introduced 8 years ago at a friend's wedding. I definitely wasn't at my best in life. New job, just out of a messy breakup, kind of jaded about love and all that. I remember playing with my wine glass, wondering if I should just leave early, when he came up to me. He had this crooked smile and an easy manner that put me at ease right away. "Do you think they put us here hoping we would pair up like we're in some kind of romantic comedy?" he said, gesturing at the other single guests, awkwardly avoiding eye contact. I laughed, a good laugh, not the polite kind. If this is a rom-com, then where's the quirky meet-cute? We hit it off right away. Mike wasn't like other guys I had dated. He was real, steady. I was used to men who enjoyed the game or the chase, but who bailed out when things got serious. Mike was different. He listened, truly listened, and made me feel I mattered. At the time, I was employed as a junior marketing specialist at a boutique agency. I was scrapping and fighting and clawing to make a name for myself in an industry of 20-somethings who all wanted the same thing I did. It wasn't glamorous, but I enjoyed it. Mike, on the other hand, was an engineer. He was working for a firm that dealt in sustainable construction, and he just had this quiet passion about his work, and I admired that. He told me about this project he was working on, this green housing development that would eliminate energy waste and costs for low-income families. His face brightened when he spoke about it, and I remember thinking, this guy really wants to make the world a better place. We began dating shortly after that wedding. Mike wasn't the flashy, sweep-you-off-your-feet type of romantic, but he was attentive in meaningful ways. He'd hide little notes in my car wishing me luck before a big presentation, or bring me my favorite takeout when I was too exhausted to cook after work. 3 years later, we were married. It was a modest outdoor ceremony at a vineyard with only our nearest friends and family. At that point, I had a senior marketing job, and Mike was the lead engineer at his company. We bought a quaint house in the suburbs, discussed the possibility of having children one day, and created a life. It wasn't ideal, but it was good. Or so I thought. In retrospect, I can see where the fissures began to emerge. My job became more demanding. Here's to late nights, networking events, and the pressure to always stay on top. At the same time, Mike's work also became more demanding, with late hours and deadlines. Both of us were exhausted by the time we got home. We stopped talking. It was just the standard, "How was your day?" followed by disjointed nods and half-hearted responses. Date nights were few and far between, and on the occasions when we did get out, it felt like we were simply going through the motions. I told myself it was normal, that every couple hits a flat spot. I missed the way he used to look at me, like I was the most important person in the world. And perhaps that's why I allowed myself to get caught up in something so reckless, so stupid, that it would cost me everything. But that's the problem with hindsight. It is always too late. Looking back now, I ask myself that question every day. Why did I cheat on Mike? He was a good man, steadfast, kind, all the things I believed I wanted when we were newly married. But if I'm being honest with myself, somewhere along this journey, something changed for me. We lost the spark, guys. There were no more exciting moments. We didn't go out anymore on beautiful and romantic dates. We didn't lose our spark in just one moment. It happened along the way of our marriage, and none of us did something to prevent that from happening because we didn't communicate anymore. Our communication was cold and short. So it wasn't just one moment or some kind of dramatic realization. It was a gradual unraveling, so gradual that I didn't even realize it was happening at first. And when I understood, to be honest, I could not believe it. I was in shock, and instead of trying to fix things in our marriage, I went out and had a wild night later on. Mike and I were stuck in a rut. Wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch television, sleep, repeat. We still cared for one another, yet it was as though the flame we once felt had burned down to a dwindling flicker. Those late-night conversations where we would go on for hours about our dreams and plans, gone. The stolen kisses and playful banter, rare. Our lives had become a series of checklists instead. Work deadlines, bills to settle, chores to complete. There was nothing romantic left from the perfect couple we once were. We were an example to all of our friends, and look at us now. I felt invisible, like I was a cog in Mike's machine. He had always been so businesslike, so down to earth. And as I respected his devotion, I began to feel like an afterthought in his world. But you know what the problem was? I didn't try to communicate my feelings to him. I just suffered in silence. Meanwhile, my job was eating me alive. One thing that does not sell, however, is marketing. It was tiring, but I needed the validation. And those times when I'd return home to a husband who hardly looked up from his laptop, I had this hollow ache. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be desired. I wanted to feel like I still mattered. Then came that night out with my mates. I wasn't expecting anything more than dinner and drinks, but when I met Mark, something changed. Mark was my old college friend. He listened to me in a way I hadn't experienced in years. He laughed at my jokes, leaned in when I spoke, and made me feel like the most interesting person in the room. To be honest, guys, Mark was not a new person to me. We were friends from college. He had always had a crush on me, but we never crossed the limits of friendship, and here he was standing in front of me as... Mark had always been handsome, and he didn't change a bit. He was tall and had black hair and black eyes. Oh, sorry, he was even better. I felt so happy that the coincidence brought him back to my life. And the thing is, that night I spent more time with Mark than with my friends. I thought I deserved it. I was finally able to escape the routine and the atmosphere between me and Mike. Mark told me that he owned his own marketing company, and he asked me to go and work for him. Or at least he said, "Come and have a work interview. I know your capabilities, and I would like you to come and work with me." I spent that night with him. I told myself it wasn't harmful. It was merely fun, a slight flirtation, nothing serious. But when he touched my hand and questioned whether I wanted to get another drink, I didn't retract. It wasn't all about Mark. It was about me, about the side of me that felt ignored, unappreciated, and stuck in a life that had grown too safe and predictable. He made me feel alive again, if just for a moment. Also, he brought back the old times. He reminded me of how often we used to go out, and we laughed so much with each other and our other friends. I wish I could turn back time, I said with a sense of nostalgia. But the thing with Mark went too far. I never wanted to cross the line. I never wanted to cheat on Mike, but it happened. We both drank too much, or maybe it was not just about drinking. We had missed each other. And now that I finally found each other again, we wanted to cross the line that we never did cross in the past. But that moment cost me my life, my marriage, and everything I had. I did not end my affair with Mark. It was as if it was a drug or an addiction one couldn't shed. It made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. We still met in secret during long lunch hours, even though I had informed Mike that I would stay late to work. Both of us were cautious, but not cautious enough. I believe he saw something in me that I did not see in myself. It was hard to tell, though, because he behaved really differently, extra polite and sort of distant. He also began asking questions, not questions outright, but things that made me feel funny. How was the event? Did you see anyone who might interest you? Are you totally sure you don't require me to bring you home from work? I don't mind. His behavior and words were more upbeat or unserious, and I could feel him receding farther away, waiting. One evening, about 3 months into our affair, Mike surprised me with a romantic dinner at home. He lit candles, made my favorite meal, and opened a bottle of wine we were saving. For us, he said, smiling softly while pouring me one. I had the feeling that we've both been super busy lately. I just want to reconnect. Guilt washed over me as I searched his eyes. He was trying, and here I was, sneaking behind his back. I'd sworn I wouldn't stay with Mark. But Mark could not be so easily dismissed. When I said we needed to stop, he beckoned me back. His charm, his promises, the way I felt like I was at the center of his universe. And so the affair continued, even as I clung with talons to the fragile hope that Mike didn't know. I didn't realize Mike had been watching me this whole time, gathering evidence quietly. He'd seen the messages, tracked the late-night meetups, and pieced together all the lies I'd told. But instead of confronting me, he simply allowed me to dig myself deeper, patiently waiting to devise his vengeance. And then one day, everything started to come undone. It had begun with little things, an email that didn't come, a canceled meeting at work, a client who suddenly did not want to renew his contract. At first I didn't think much of it, but then things started going wrong. Projects I had put so much effort into were passed inexplicably to coworkers, but whispers soon began spreading of my unprofessional behavior. Mike was as stoic as ever at home, more stoic. He would kiss me on the forehead, tell me to take care of myself, and watch me spiral, secretly enjoying the chaos he had created. I didn't know it then, but he was working strings behind the scenes, using proof of my affair to systematically dismantle the life I had created. I was a little too late to the party to figure out what was happening. My boss called me into her office one day to talk about concerns regarding my conduct outside of work. I didn't know what she was talking about until she pushed her phone across the desk. There on the screen was a photo of me and Mark, arms around each other, laughing, too close for it to be assumed we were just friends. I could feel the blood drain from my face. "This was sent to me anonymously," she said, her face emotionless, but her tone harsh. "You have to understand what this looks like." I fumbled through an explanation, but she didn't seem to buy it. "We have professionalism here. Don't give me an excuse to question yours anymore," she said before waving me away. My knees felt weak as I walked out of her office. Mike. It had to be him. At home, Mike pretended everything was the same. He still smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek when I came home, and asked what was going on in my day. But there was an ice in his eyes that hadn't previously been present. I tried to dismiss my paranoia, telling myself I was imagining things, but it wasn't too long before the money problems began. One night, I went to pay a bill online and noticed one of our joint accounts had been emptied. I panicked and called Mike, who reassured me that he had just moved some money around for a private investment. "That money was for our savings," I argued. "It's still our money," he said with a frightening smile. "Don't worry about it." In the weeks that followed, I found more changes. Suddenly, credit cards I had always used relatively freely would no longer be accepted. Subscriptions were canceled mysteriously. Even my gym membership was canceled without notice. The walls felt like they were closing in, but Mike was oblivious to the whole thing. The real gut punch came when he finally confronted me, though not in the way I thought he would. One evening, returning home after another clandestine meeting with Mark, I walked into the living room and saw Mike waiting for me. He had this cold look in his eyes. It was like he knew everything, and he actually knew. He had his laptop open, and up on the screen was a folder titled The Truth. I got anxious, and I was shaking. I thought I was going to hide it forever, but no secret can be kept forever. As I was thinking about a way out, there was none. I had to face the consequences of what I had done. "Sit down," he said, his voice eerily calm. My heart raced as I obeyed. He opened the folder, and my stomach dropped. Inside were photos, screenshots of texts between me and Mark, emails I'd sent him, even timestamps of our rendezvous. "I know everything," Mike said, his voice so even it scared me. "I've known for months." The ground was trembling below my feet. I felt like I was about to faint, but I didn't. In that moment, I wished I would actually, so I could not hear or see what I was about to hear and see. I had no way out. I was about to say something, but he raised his hand to quiet me. I wanted to vanish. I wanted to hide, but I couldn't. My world was falling apart, and I could not do anything about it. And then he continued. "I considered confronting you right then and there," he continued. "But then I realized you deserve better than just a breakup. You deserve to feel the weight of every lie you told me, every second you treated me like a fool." So he knew for a long time, but he was planning a structured and detailed revenge because he wanted me to feel the same way he felt. His revenge was very well thought out. My throat was dry. I just stared at him. "Mike, I'm sorry." "Save it," he snapped, momentarily losing his coolness. "You're not sorry for cheating on me. You're sorry you got caught." I don't know if he was right or not. Maybe he was, because I was not ending the affair with Mark. We had already gone too far. He reclined, fixating his gaze on me. "So here's how this is going to work. We're done. I have already filed for divorce." The following weeks felt like a nightmare. Mike took pleasure in cartmanizing my life. My affair leaked out to a wide circle, our friends, my family, and my work colleagues. Suddenly, the people who used to respect me looked at me with disgust. My parents, who had always loved Mike, stood firmly with him. At the office, the rumors flew like wildfire. The photo of Mark and me, which had occupied space on my boss's desk, began circulating the office. My reputation was in tatters, and I was compelled to resign before I would have been terminated. And Mark? The man I had risked everything for? He vanished the instant the fallout started. His messages became more distant, his excuses more abundant, until he finally ghosted me altogether. I had realized too late that he never cared about me. I was just a distraction to him, something ephemeral, something that didn't matter. By the time the divorce was finalized, I was left with nothing. He took the house, the savings, and even the car. The prenup, which I'd signed without hesitation years earlier, barely left me enough to get started again. But the worst part was not what he took from me. It was the void he left behind. The awareness that I'd ruined my own life, bit by bit, for a thing that didn't even matter. Now, I live alone in a tiny apartment, looking out at the silence stretching about me. Each day, I replay my decisions that led me here, that I could have been so ignorant. Mike's revenge was not so much about stealing things from me as it was about letting me see the magnitude of what I had lost. And he succeeded. I am living my messy life, hoping someday I will forgive myself. Much love. Samantha, update. Hello, guys. I am back because I think you all deserve to know an update about my story. Life has not changed much, actually. As you all may know, Mike and I had a lot of common friends, and I have happened to see him sometimes at events we were both invited to. Well, there is something good in this news. I still get invited to some events. Not everyone has distanced themselves from me. To be honest, the most important people had done that, distancing themselves from me. But at least there were some people left, and my social life was not completely destroyed. The point is, every time I met Mike, I tried going near him and talking to him, hoping we could have a kind of relationship, hoping we could build some things together. Yeah, I hurt him a lot, and he also destroyed my life, but he was the real love of mine. I know that you will say that if he was my love, then I wouldn't have cheated on him. But sometimes things happen, and we just get lost. Now I could not stop thinking about him, and I could not dim the sense of guilt inside of me. The first time I saw him post-divorce was at a birthday dinner for one of our friends, Rachel. I almost didn't go. I didn't know if I could see him, let alone in public. I wanted to show myself and the rest of the world that I wasn't utterly defeated. Finally, I decided to go, and when I entered, my heart sank. Mike was there already, laughing with a gaggle of friends, appearing more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. He looked happy. He looked free. We made eye contact for a second, and I smiled at him, small and shy. He didn't smile back. Instead, he simply continued his conversation, and he kept laughing as though I didn't exist. That was what I was for him. Nothing. The rest of that evening was torture. The tension would change every time I tried to be in a group. Conversations got awkward, people averted my gaze, and laughter that came so easily before became strained. Mike, in contrast, appeared to flourish. He was witty and charming and laughed louder than anyone else, while I sat quietly in the corner nursing a glass of wine and wishing I could just disappear. While I tried to open up a conversation with him, I said how sorry I was about what I did. He didn't say a word. He just moved away from me. He didn't consider me at all. A couple of months later, I went to a barbecue at another mutual friend's and decided to try talking to him. I couldn't keep shoving aside the burden of everything I'd done, and I hoped, naively, that maybe I could find some way to apologize, to explain, to, I don't know, make amends. I found him alone by the grill, flipping patties, and having a casual conversation with someone close by. Gathering all of my courage, I went up to him. "Mike," I said softly, the words trembling in my throat. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" He gazed at me, his face unreadable. I wondered if he would say yes to that, and then he shook his head. "I don't think we have anything to talk about," he continued, cool but polite. "Not anymore." "Please," I said, my voice breaking. "I just want to apologize. I know there's nothing I can do to go back and change what I did, but I need you to know I'm so sorry." He looked at me for a few moments, and I thought I saw a flicker of something, anger maybe, or sadness, but just as soon as I saw it, it was gone. "I don't need your apology," he said at last. "I needed your honesty, your loyalty, when it counted. And you couldn't give me that." His words hit me like a slap. My mouth opened to answer, but he wasn't looking at me anymore, just back at the grill as if I didn't exist. After that, I stopped trying. Every time I had to see him at an event, I stayed at the edges, watching from the sidelines as he laughed and spoke easily, his life apparently unaffected by the devastation he'd wreaked on mine. I'd heard through mutual friends that he'd begun dating again. Nothing serious, but enough to make me feel the sharp pang of jealousy. It sounded like he was moving on, creating a new life without me, and here I was, stuck in the wreckage of the one I'd ruined. Those interactions were a daily reminder of what I'd lost, of the love I'd tossed away for something so brief, so meaningless. And it never mattered how much I rebuilt. The shadows of my betrayal haunted me with each step, a ghost I could never escape. I had no chance to talk to him, let alone have more than that. So, yeah, Mark's revenge left me devastated. He destroyed my career, my financial situation, and also my social life. Mike's vengeance stretched into my social life, too. Most of our friends, most of whom had really been mine first, sided with him. They believed his story. Why wouldn't they? He had the receipts, the proof of my disloyalty. Each event I had to go to felt like walking into a courtroom to be silently charged. People would step away, their chatter quieting as I neared. Some simply cut me off, erasing me from their lives without saying a word. My family did not even give me a hug. My parents, who had loved Mike, were devastated by what I'd wrought. My mother did not call as much, and when she did, her voice was clipped and disapproving. "You made your bed," she told me once. "Now you have to lie in it." His revenge was affecting my life yet, and I would for a long time. I was also feeling very lonely. Mark disappeared after he saw what was going on with my husband. He didn't want to be part of this big revenge. His revenge also affected my health. It was terribly stressful, and my health suffered. I began losing weight, not because I was trying, but because I was unable to eat. I started losing weight not because I was trying, but because I couldn't eat. My hair started to thin, and dark circles took up permanent residence under my eyes. Nights were the worst. I used to lie awake for hours, reliving every moment of my affair, every deceit I'd committed, and every decision that had brought me to this moment. Anxiety made its home in my chest, and soon depression followed. Therapy was out of my reach, so I endured my pain alone, spiraling ever deeper into hopelessness. Oh, I have to tell you also something else he did after I tried to talk to him. He sent to my apartment a picture of the two of us from our wedding and wrote, "A reminder of what you threw away." Also, after seeing that there were still some people that were inviting me to their events, he started telling them that I was struggling to get my life together, and I wasn't good company to anyone. And then there were the reminders of the life he was making without me. He began seeing another woman, someone who was everything I wasn't, sweet, committed, respected. Then, seeing friends post photos of them smiling and happy, while I sat alone in my dark apartment, scrolling through pictures of a life I could have had and didn't destroy. This was my story, guys. Mike's revenge was neither loud nor dramatic. It was patient, methodical, and devastating. He didn't only punish me for my betrayal, he ensured I felt its burden in every drive of my being. I now live in the wake of my decisions, burdened by the life I wrecked. Each day reminds me of what I had and what I lost. And the worst part, I know I deserve it. Thank you, everyone, for reading my story again. Try not to judge me a lot. Thank you again. Much love, Samantha.